Hi everyone. It's almost spring of 2017. It's the 16th of March today. It doesn't quite feel like that here in New Hampshire. We've just had like, I don't know, I think 12 or 14 inches of snow. So it doesn't quite feel like it's really almost spring, but it actually is. And so I thought I would do a few viewer request videos as I get back into getting videos done for the channel. And I know that one of my most highly requested videos is my favorite decks for each season of the year. So for early spring 2017, these are the decks that I'm working with and that I've found really powerful in my personal experience, especially navigating new personal journeys. So the first two decks that I want to talk about are two that I wasn't really expecting to work with a lot, but ended up not getting packed as I was moving, and so seemed to be actually out and on the altar, and ones that I could work with, and I ended up spending a little bit more time with than I typically have in the past or had intended to. And I've actually found them to be really healing and helpful on my journey at this time. So the Rumi Oracle is the first of these two. And you guys know I have the box, but not the guidebook. That's okay. You need to see the guidebook. I was a little bit underwhelmed by this deck when it first came out and kind of struggled with getting to know it. In some ways, it felt a lot like it was the Journey of Love Oracle kind of redone again. But I've really been coming into a place of new appreciation for Rumi's works at this time. And I really love the voice that Alana uses in the guidebook, even though over the past year I've kind of lost a large amount of the connection I feel with her as a healer, perhaps. And that's not to say anything bad against her, it's just I feel a separation in our work. But the guidebook for the Rumi Oracle is really beautiful. And the artwork by Raecine is beautiful, as you can see. And it definitely is an awesome deck for a daily draw and for getting some clarity on general energy of the day for you and kind of core themes that are going on. I don't use this deck for spreads. I don't use this deck for clients. It's much more of a personal deck for like in the morning after meditating. Now, my original copy of this, I had trimmed the edges off of, and I really like that look a lot better, and I intend to do that with this copy. So if you've seen that like on my Instagram page or whatever, that's an older copy that does have the edges trimmed off, and I actually really prefer that look. But I've been really surprised this time around working with the deck. Gosh, it's probably been out for over a year now, I think, that I feel a lot more connected to the messages and to the cards themselves. And it's much more about like big picture connection with the divine. It's not really like a day-to-day, you know, should I change jobs and do this? It's much more of an energetic deck and a lot more about empowering yourself through understanding what's going on energetically for you. So if you're in a place like that, if you're in a place of major life transition, or you're just feeling really stuck, you're trying to reconnect with your spirituality, I think that the Rumi Oracle is actually a great option. It's not, like I said, when I first got this deck, I wasn't completely connected with it. So I would definitely say that it's a slow grower, at least it has been for me, but it's one that I definitely will be keeping in my collection as I get settled in. It's not one that I'll regift or find a new home for. The other deck that I was surprised by my whole experience with is the Viking Oracle. So you guys know I did a review last month, and I really want to love this deck. I'm not totally in love with this deck. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But it's actually a good deck for clarity. So it's for a clarifying oracle deck. It's awesome. And for a daily draw, again, like the Rumi Oracle, just to kind of get a read on energy, it's also a great deck. And I love the poetry that Stacy created for the deck. This is, I gotta get used to this camera. This is the backing. And I want to love this deck. I do. I don't really love this deck, and yet I have been using it. So it speaks to Stacy's decks and the power of them. Some of the artwork I'm not in love with. And I guess I understand why she included the runes, but I would rather use a rune set if I'm going to work with the runes as opposed to cards. And so I know a lot of people said that, and at first I didn't think it bothered me, but as time's gone by, it has, you know, sat with me that it's not the runes, but it is the runes, and I really prefer to just use my runes. However, the mythology that's included and the card meanings are relatively clear and direct, and it is a nice deck for clarification and also just for getting to know the pantheon if you're new to working with the Norse gods and goddesses. So let me just, let's see, did I already, here's the void. Here's Loki, and here's Hell. Again, I want to love it. I want to love it. And so I keep working with it, and I'm working on, this image is beautiful. Here's Idrisil. So it's a slow grower, but I am connecting with it, and I think it is one that requires you to do a lot of personal work. Here we go. This is what I wanted to show you. There's Odin, our Big Mac Daddy. It's a slow grower, but if you really are invested in the Norse pantheon, or you want to get to know it, it is one that you'll be able to work with as time goes by. So those were my two that really surprised me. I wasn't planning on connecting with them as deeply as I have, and I would say especially the Rumi Oracle over the last couple of weeks has been a pretty intense and beautiful, very healing connection, so I'm really, really thankful for that deck. These two probably won't surprise you all. They're beloved decks of mine, and I'm happy that they made the move with me, because they're ones that I treasure and deeply value working with. So this first one is the Enigma Tarot. The backings are just stunning, and each one is different and ends up becoming its own, like almost a mandala of sorts. So this deck is super clear to read with. It's beautifully done because it's Da Vinci's sketches. His guidebook is incredible. I've talked about that with you guys before. And it's a very, very powerful, clear, concise deck. It's got a very, very beautiful, I would say masculine voice. And reading with this deck is just a dream. I mean, it's pretty much, it's been this for Tarot of Vampires that I've been reading for clients with for the last few months. So this is one that is just a joy to work with. It's like, it's beautiful. It gives great clarity, and you know, it's a deck, it's a tarot deck that I don't need an oracle deck for clarification unless I want to use an oracle deck with it. Really, really beautiful, clear, concise. I just love this deck more and more as the years go by, and I'm so thankful to the viewer who sent it to me, because it's one that I would have thought, well, you know, it's probably just a knockoff and I don't want to waste my investment on it, but it's not a knockoff. It's beautifully, lovingly crafted with great attention to detail, and just such a joy to work with. So the Da Vinci Enigma Tarot is, if you are considering buying it and you haven't purchased it yet, and you connect with Da Vinci's work, especially his drawings and sketches, this image is like my favorite, then I think you're really going to find a lot of power in working with this deck, and that it does have a place in your collection. And it's almost like a very elementally it's very much, if we're going to look at it as an element, air. So it's, to me, it has that feeling to it. It's like that clarity when air is in balance. So you know, for kind of meatier or weightier questions in life, decision making, big shifts, stuff like that, this is a beautiful deck to work with, and I am so happy to work with it. And it's also on this beautiful cardstock. Like, can you guys see this? It has broken in so well, and it's still so in such good shape that it's a joy to work with, and it makes me remember why cardstock is so important to decks. So if you're creating a deck out there, remember that those of us that work with decks and collect them are so happy to invest in decks with good cardstock, because this is a dream as far as the cardstock goes, at least in my opinion, to work with. But I like thicker cards anyhow. Okay, pausing. So, the Chicoli Oracle. I know. You guys know that I love this deck. And, okay, let's just be clear about this. I love this deck, but it scares the out of me. Because it's so much like the Chicoli Tarot, but it's different because it has its own voice. It just doesn't pull any punches. And like, if you're, whatever you're avoiding, this deck knows, and it talks to you about it. I think something that's really important to remember is that what it's talking to you about doesn't necessarily need to be as scary as, like, oh my God, it's this thing I was afraid of, now it's going to come true. I think it's more like the deck is saying, this is what you're actually afraid of. Why don't you look at this before you move further along the path, so that you can shift that cycle. So I do want to say, like, don't get into too much of a fear space with it, but much like the Fallen Angels Oracle, which we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, this deck is no joke. And beautifully done, of course, we would expect no less. In fact, I'm considering buying another copy just to have in safety for, you know, for this one, possibly if anything happens to it, much like I do with my Tarot of Vampires and my Chicoli Tarot. So I have not, I've used this deck with a few clients. I take that back, I think 1 or 2. I'm getting ready to use it with more clients. It's, again, a ball buster. It's, there's no, you just can't hide from this deck. So it is one that, in working with others, it absolutely calls for, you know, honesty from your client or your querent, whatever, however you'd like to address them. It does require honesty and being upfront, and also being willing to have conversations about things. I think that's the most important thing with this deck. If you're working with someone who's very closed off and who isn't open to discussion and working at, oh, how do I want to say that, guys? Like, working on their stuff. If they're not willing to do that, then this might not be the deck to read for others, for that person with. And it also might not be the deck to read for yourself with, if you can't approach your work with that kind of truth and authenticity and kind of like brutal honesty. But if you can, if you're open to that, if you really can approach your practice with truth and, you know, light those candles, sit in front of that altar and do that work, this is a deck that will give you a lot of clarity on the path. And that being said, it is a ball buster, and it does scare the shit out of me. It does. Like, it's super upfront with what the hell is really going on in your life. It doesn't let you hide from stuff. So this deck is stunning. It's beautiful. I can't say enough about Chicoli's work, and I can't say enough about her decks. And even though Scarabeo publishes them, and I'm not a big Scarabeo fan, you know, whenever I see that she's got a deck coming out, it's on my list, because it's so, her work is so powerful and so visceral, especially if you're someone who, and you guys know I've linked to I'll put a link below to that video as well, talking about Chicoli's work. And if you're someone who has experienced any type of, you know, major trauma or issues in childhood, her work's actually a really beneficial, healthy trigger to help you get into stuff. The otherworldliness, the fantasy world of her work, this idea of these girls going through these images that look beautiful from the outside, but there's actually a bigger fairy tale or a bigger myth going on underneath it. It's a deck that's really good for powerful work. So Chicoli Oracle is on my list for this spring. Okay, so then we have the Fallen Angels Oracle. Before I start talking about the Fallen Angels Oracle, I just wanted to show you guys, so I have some pagan prayer beads from Power Femme Tarot, and I will put a link below to her shop. This is in honor of Hecate, and this set of prayer beads likes to lay on top of my Fallen Angels Oracle. Not a surprise, because Hecate is a dark goddess and a goddess of the crossroads, so it makes sense that she is hanging out with this deck. I have found that the pagan prayer beads and the pagan prayer bead jewelry that Crystal creates and crafts have been really, really powerful in my personal practice of late, and I really, really love having them with my decks. And so I actually have quite a collection of her work now, because I find that they like to work with certain decks and travel with them. I wear them on my body, I meditate with the prayer beads, and I found as well that for Reiki clients at times there'll be certain points during sessions where I might have them hold the prayer beads as well and kind of connect with deity or a sacred animal, spirit animal in that way. So this prayer bead set likes to be with the Fallen Angels Oracle. So let's all chat about the Fallen Angels Oracle for a little bit, because it's, as you all know, one of my favorite decks, and it's a deck that I love, but I don't necessarily recommend to everyone, and there are a couple reasons for that. Number one, it's called the Fallen Angels Oracle, and so we're not talking about angels in heaven, we're talking about fallen angels, so guys, we're talking about demons. So you have to be comfortable with understanding the balance of light and dark, and not looking at that as good and evil, but looking at the wisdom that can be found in the earthier element of the fallen angels or demons. We'll just say the word, right, guys? So that being said, the guidebook is very helpful as far as letting you see that there's been thorough research done in the demons that are represented in the Fallen Angel Oracle. So you have clear understanding of elements and planets that they're associated with, and kind of like a key word for them. There's not a whole lot of meat to the guidebook itself, but there is enough in there that lets you know that, you know, Nigel did his research and things have been, the energies that have shown up in this deck are there for a purpose. I'm going to do another video due to viewer request, very wonderfully asked, if I would do a video on working more in depth with the deck, which I will do. So I'm not going to get too over the top in this video because I'm rambling as normal. I'll do a separate video on that. But there is, if you invest the time in this deck to get to know the energy of the cards, it's an awesome deck to work with. If you don't invest the time, the energies associated with this deck just won't invest time with you. So this deck is really a lot more left-hand path than right-hand path, which means that, like, when you line up with left-hand path here, we're talking about you being in the driver's seat. So the ultimate responsibility for your experience with this deck lies with you. So this is a deck for left-hand pathers. This is a deck for people who actually want to meditate with their decks, who want to journey with their decks, and who take their work with their decks seriously. So if that doesn't interest you, then this really isn't a deck that you're going to enjoy working with. I have had this deck forever. I love this deck. I will always love this deck. And I will always work with this deck to my knowledge. As you can see, this copy is getting a little weathered, and so I do have to invest in another copy, but it's very reasonably priced. So you can see you have the demon's name and then a keyword. This deck, just like the Chicoli Oracle, will kick your ass, just so that you know. It's very clear. It doesn't lie. It doesn't pull any punches. It doesn't beat around the bush. It just tells you the way things really are. So you have to be able to approach it with some gumption and understand that if you're not ready to hear the answer, don't ask the question, as a friend of mine would say. But beautifully done deck, really powerful imagery. There's really just isn't a deck like this. It's unique, and it's also unique in that it is a Fallen Angels Oracle, so we don't have a lot of decks representing that type of energy out there, and I think it's important to also have the dark, the earth, the profane in balance with the sacred. So it's a very powerful deck, and one of my favorites, and I have been working with this deck hardcore, so... And the size of this deck is like perfection. I wish all of my decks were like this size or Blue Angel Oracle size. I love this size. For some people it's too big, but it's just like, I don't know, it's perfect. It's really yummy to shuffle. It's one of my favorite decks to shuffle. So now I have the Chicoli Tarot, which is trimmed. And you can see that I've written my own associations there. So this deck is very truthful and upfront, like the Chicoli Oracle, but the Chicoli Tarot is maybe a little bit more user-friendly, and I mean that as a compliment. Trimmed, it is teeny, itty-bitty tiny. I would prefer that they make a larger size version of this deck, and if someone out there who's in charge of those things is listening, please know that we would love for you to make a larger size deck of the Chicoli Tarot, because the images are so beautiful, but it is hard to see them when they're this small. So again, a lot of inner work called for with this, a lot of inner child work. If you are exploring authenticity, looking at your core wounds and your strengths as well as your weaknesses, understanding self-worth. This is a beautiful deck for that. Here's the Lovers. I love this image. Let's see, where is my... Oh, look at this one. Isn't this one beautiful? I just love this deck so much. Let's see. If I can find my favorite image. Those of you who have been watching my channel for years and already know what my favorite image is in this deck. I love this Wheel of Fortune image too, guys. But this deck comes with me a lot, and it actually reads, this one's gorgeous. It actually likes to read with others much more than the Oracle deck, which is a joy for me to read with others, because people don't quite, I love this one. People don't quite know how to, this is my favorite image in the deck, everyone. People don't know quite how to respond, because it does evoke this kind of really powerful experience of childhood and youth and innocence, but also then interacting with this very adult terrain of fear and unconscious and subconscious. So it's a deck that people have powerful reactions to, which means that if you are a reader who works intuitively, it's a powerful deck to like really get a chance to do some big time healing work with. So I would encourage you to, you know, if you are a reader and you're looking to step into that kind of type of reading, if you haven't really explored it, or if you already work at that level and you haven't worked with the Chicoli Tarot, to explore what it looks like in that realm for people who are looking to do some real soul work with their tarot readings. You guys are going to laugh, but I cannot remember the name of this deck off the top of my head. So I will post the link below when I upload this. Hopefully I will remember to do that, because I know you guys are always telling me I'm forgetting to post links to what I say. I'm so sorry about that. Cannot remember the name of this one to save my life. Beautiful deck. I didn't know why I didn't box this one up when I was moving. I just brought it with me. I'm still not sure why over other decks this one made the cut, but wow, is this deck beautiful, concise, to the point. As you can see, I've got a lot of that going on right now with my decks for this time of year for myself. Really great clarifier for tarot, and marries beautifully to the Mary L tarot and the Tarot of Vampires. Like, just gorgeous to work with together. If you have this deck, which I can't remember the name of, and you choose to, and I mean, you haven't explored like what this deck looks like with the Mary L or the Tarot of Vampires, I would absolutely give it a try, because you're not going to be disappointed. It's, look at that. It's just so beautiful. Love it. And you know when the name of the deck is on the tip of your tongue, but you just can't think of it? That's what's going on for me right now. But this deck is actually right next to my bed right now. It's just a nice, it's a nice companion deck. Like, it feels like it wants to travel and go places with you and explore things with you, and not, I don't know, it's not like a stay at home. It's a traveling deck. It's a traveling deck. So this one has been a surprise, but really beautiful to work with over the last few months for me. So the next two decks probably won't surprise you guys either. The Mary L Tarot, of course. I think anytime that you are choosing to walk down an unknown path, this deck is a powerful one for that. And the artwork pulls you in, doesn't, you know, no holds barred. Just, it's gonna bring it all to light, all of your fears and concerns and all of your strengths as well, right? Like, all of the things that make you you are contained in the archetypes held in this deck, within this deck. And it was just so lovingly and intentionally crafted as well, that it really is a joy to work with. Oh, there's Vulture with the moon. So powerful. Love this image. If I remember right, this is Michael. It's one of the archangels here in this image. So yeah, this deck, very powerful, very purposeful, and just has such a passionate voice as far as encouraging you to really look at what's important and what's not important in your life, but also the symbols, the signs, the messages, all of those little things on our paths. Even when we're in those times where it feels really you know, you have those times when you feel like you're kind of stuck, and it's very much like chop wood, carry water, and where is the art, where's the beauty in your life? And this deck encourages you to find it in each and every moment, and not to wait for some magnificent thing to happen to experience that. So, of course, if you want to choose to have that happen, then you can do that too. But this deck is very much about finding that in each and every moment. And I think also really letting you know that, oh my God, we're never alone. We're always surrounded by whatever you want to call the divine, and always kind of supported, not kind of, but supported in each and every experience we have, whether we perceive it as a negative experience or a positive experience. And I think this deck calls that to mind really beautifully, and pays honor to and reverence to the Rider-Waite-Smith system while not being a slave to that system. And you'll also find some Thoth peeking out in this deck as well, which is really, really nice. The other deck is the Visions of Gaia Tarot. God, I just love this deck, guys. Like, I just do. I love Raven's work. It's grown on me. I mean, I loved it from the beginning, but it's like each year it gets better and better and better for me. And I have this one out in the main altar here to connect with at an even deeper level. I mean, look at this Queen of Air. Oh my God. Two of Cups. Look at that. So beautiful. It's a stunner. It's visually stunning. It's the black background and backing is like my favorite, of course. And there is just so much to connect with this deck, and to enjoy, but also like to learn, because it is even more so than Marielle, its own system, and is really does require some study and some research and some honor to the system with which it was crafted. And I said that in my earlier review of this deck. It's not one to be approached without respect and honor, research, study, time, investment of energy, because you can't approach and read this deck like, oh, it's an oracle deck, oh, it's a tarot deck. It is its own deck. So you approach your tools, you know, we approach our sacred tools with honor and respect, and it's no different with this deck. In fact, maybe more so with this deck. And as long as you approach it like that, like, you're good to go. You're going to have awesome readings with this deck. Journaling, 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 journaling. Like, I can't say enough about journaling with this deck. I love that. So that owl, very similar to the owl in the Messenger Oracle, which, as you guys know, is one of my favorite oracle decks. I've been rambling quite a bit here, so I think I will... Oh, look at this image, guys. So beautiful. So this deck has been having a big impact. It's just such, I don't know, it's like Fallen Angels, in that it's going to give you upfront, concise, kick-ass answers, but it also feels super loving. So it's one that I like to have out and around, because it feels so comforting in this way that it's also very honest, it's also comforting. So maybe to me, I mean, it's perfect that it's called, I said Visions of Gaia, didn't I? Meant Dreams of Gaia. Sorry about that. I will fix that. The Dreams of Gaia Tarot, it makes sense that it was called that because it does have very much that mother feel to it. It's very much a mother, loving mother deck. So beautiful to work with this. Again, Dreams of Gaia Tarot by Raven Phelan. She is just such a gift to our community, and it's such a, I just feel so privileged to get to work with her decks. So I'm very, very happy and thankful to be able to work with this deck over the last month. So the Earthbound Oracle has been my go-to clarifying deck for clients over the last month and a half. Oh my God, guys, this deck is such a gem. If you don't have this and you're a reader, it's like, it's such a beautiful clarifier because it's so like quick, fast clarity. It's like boom. Especially when I'm doing like a whole day of readings for clients. Oh my God, this deck is just such a gift. It's beautiful, crisp. Again, it's very air. It's very air in its harmonious element, aspect of the element. Clear, concise, crisp, no questions, just bam. And I love that, especially when reading for others. Not when I'm getting into the meat of something, but when I want clarity on a card that's shown up. Isn't that beautiful? Let's see. This card, everybody loves this card, can I tell you, when they see. And that's the other thing, is a lot of clients or querents, whatever you prefer to call the people you're reading for, they enjoy the imagery in this deck because it is so, it's not convoluted. It's very, like, the focus is on the key word, and the image is very much in line with the key word. So this is beautiful. So I really enjoy this deck as a clarifier for clients. Look at this, like, just You get that like gut reaction as soon as you see the card for this deck. So Earthbound Oracle, been really powerful with clients. My always honorable mentions, I use them all year, every damn day. Tarot of Vampires, this is trimmed and edged in red. Powerful, beautiful gorgeousness. Doesn't get any better than this deck for me. This is my home deck. It's the deck that I read with every single day. It's the deck that feels like home to me, which I will be doing a video on how to know when you found your home deck, because some people have asked about that. It's just such a gift. This deck is just like coming home. Like, it makes me want to cry when I talk about it. I love this deck so much. So, and this is one of those decks where like you either love this deck or you hate this deck. So if you don't like vampires, you're not going to like this deck. Let's see. Powerful, powerful, kick-ass. The guidebook is one of the best guidebooks on tarot out there, in my opinion. No one's going to change my mind about that. I recommend it to everyone. Bet you couldn't guess that the Isis Oracle was going to show up. Still my favorite deck, Oracle deck of all time. This and Sacred Rebels I use a lot. Sacred Rebels isn't on the list right now because of the Rumi Oracle. I've kind of been taking a little bit of a break from the Sacred Rebels. I really needed her energy in December, early January. Over the last month, I've needed to take a little step back from that and just really connect back in with the Isis Oracle, back with the mother. You know, for me, Isis is the mother. And feel really safe and protected in my personal work. And this deck does that. It's very clear. It's very potent, and it's very much Isis. It's the only deck that I've ever come across that even remotely begins to show and share her energy in this way that I experience her. So this deck, I have like 4 copies of this deck because I have like 2 out on altars, and then Vincent has his own copy, and then I have an extra one just in case. You know, be it traveling or if something spills on something, you know, anything happens, I've got backup with this. Because like this, just like Tarot of Vampires, these are my 2 decks. Like if you told me I could only work with 2 decks for the rest of my life, it would be the Isis Oracle and it would be Tarot of Vampires. So what else can I say, guys, besides those 2 decks will always be on my favorites list. Let's see. So I think that this year is boiling down to not being an easier year than last year, not being a breath of fresh air, but instead really encouraging us to look at where we hide from ourselves. And so for me, that this year has been really big with those lessons, and also really big about embracing your power and feeling comfortable in that, and not feeling a need to apologize for it or to make it make sense for other people. That's been really important for me to look at and to start to heal this year. So these decks have been ones that are really helpful for that process. At least that's how I found them to be personally. I found them to be very helpful for that process. So if you're finding that you're going through something similar in your own life, which if you've been drawn to watch this video, it's not just because of the decks. I mean, we could talk about decks all day. It's probably because you're in a similar place in your own journey. And I would encourage you to pick up one of these decks, especially if you already have one in your collection, that you know, maybe looking at it in a different way, not just drawing a card when you have a question or when you want to do something fun, but looking at it, looking at the deck as a sacred tool that can help you do some really big soul work. And any of these decks on this list are going to get you there. They're going to help you. You know, I would say the Earthbound Oracle would be a really great clarifying deck to use with one of the tarot decks to help you get there. But each and every deck on this list isn't going to let you hide from your truth. So these are beautiful decks, empowering decks. A lot of my collection is packed away right now, so these are the decks that kind of made the cut to, you know, that I knew I would be able to connect with for a good few months without any other decks. So these are decks that were important to have out in as I stepped into a new phase of my life. So these are my favorites. I know, the most highly requested video. I hope it's been helpful and that everyone's enjoyed watching this. And I will put a link to this deck. And I will also put a link to the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. So if you heard Visions of Gaia, which is a channel, not a deck, you won't get confused by that. For the life of me, I cannot remember the name of this deck, which very rarely happens and is cracking me up, but it's a very beautiful deck. So I will see you all in the next video. Be looking for more videos. It is my intention. I have quite the list of videos to actually sit down and start making, and I'm finding time now in my schedule where I can really be present to that. So I'm excited to look into more meatier things, and I've also been connecting very strongly with the sacred masculine over the last few months, and so I want to start a series connecting with the sacred masculine so that there's that balance of both of those options on the channel for people that are drawn to explore connection with deity. So we will be looking at how to connect with gods and what their messages are for us. So, you know, and within that we'll be looking at gods that you may not have heard of before, but also gods that you're familiar with that there might be another layer to that you haven't explored. So be looking for that as well. I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for spending time with me, guys. Much love, many blessings.